Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the CBJ show. I'm Brandon, and along with me, I've got a very special guest. His name is Jeff Lemieux. He is the New England Revolution senior sports writer for the MLS club, and it's a privilege to be able to talk with him today, talking about a little bit of recap of this past season and what to look forward to. So, without further ado, let's jump into our interview. So I guess I'm gonna start off with the past year. Had lots of highlights. Unfortunately, had a low light towards the end of the year. But I guess to start with you, what was one big takeaway from this past year?
Yeah, I think it was a hugely successful season for the New England Revolution. And I know it's kind of tough to look at what happened over the course of the past few weeks with, falling in the first round of the postseason and then seeing New York City FC go on a couple of weeks later and lift that MLS Cup trophy, which is what Revolution fans all wanted to see this club do this season to cap off what was such a magical season. Unfortunately, the playoffs they're just such a crapshoot. You just never know what you're going to get come playoff time when everything comes down to 90 or 120 minutes. And I think everybody kind of always understood that was going to be a possibility come playoff time, that anything can happen on any given day. So I think you have to kind of step back, and after letting, that playoff loss kind of settle a little bit and sitting with the heartbreak for a little bit, you have to look back at this season and say, what a tremendously successful season for the Revolution. What huge leaps this team made to go out and set the single season MLS points record, to win the first Supporter Shield in club history, to have the league MVP in Carlos Heel, to have the coach of the year in Bruce Arena, to have the goalkeeper of the year in Matt Turner, to be able to transfer Tajon Buchanan to Club Bruges and bring in, a transfer fee for the first time in a long time for the club. I think when you look at this year as a whole, yes, everyone's going to kind of immediately focus on the fact that it ended in heartbreak. But overall, you have to be really, really happy with the way the 2021 season played out for the Revolution.
Yes, everyone wants to look at the loss in the playoffs as the first thing, but you got to look at all the accomplishments, including that Supporter Shield trophy being the first MLS trophy this club ever got in 26 years, which is incredible.
Yeah, we waited a long, long time to be able to have that moment at Gillette Stadium, that trophy lift with the confetti falling. And the Revs had a few of those moments with Eastern Conference championships, and the Superliga trophy back in 2008 was won at Gillette Stadium. But to be able to go into that decision day game and know that at the end of 90 minutes, the Revs were going to get up on a stage and they were going to have confetti fly and they were going to lift a Supporter Shield and be able to share that moment with their supporters for the first time in 26 years, that was really special. So to be able to have that moment this season, I'm really, really glad that we had that moment, as we came back with such a difficult 2020 season with COVID and playing in empty stadiums. So to be able to come back together in 2021, have the type of season that the Revs had, be able to have those moments in front of the fans in Foxborough, there were some really special moments this year.
Yes, I think it says it without really going into it much, was just an incredible year with so many accomplishments. One of the biggest news is you mentioned transferring Tajon Buchanan to Club Bruges. That's going to be a big hole to fill. And I wanted to hear, if you had a favorite moment of or with Tajon on and off the field.
Well, certainly. So favorite moment off the field, I think my first interview, I remember very vividly my first interview with Tajon after he got drafted. I was there on draft day when he was selected by the Revolution. And I interviewed him in that moment, shortly after he'd been drafted. But the first real sit down, in-depth interview that I had with Tajon was on preseason in 2019 when we were in Spain. And I sat down with him in the hotel lobby and had a conversation about his past and his history. And, he had essentially hadn't had a whole lot of college offers, and he kind of had to work his way into an ID camp to really even have Syracuse take a look at him. And he felt like he had been proving people wrong throughout the course of his entire high school career and then through his college career. And he had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder that he wanted to continue going out and proving people wrong. And that conversation really stuck with me. So to then see Tajon go and develop the way he did at the professional level and just continue to get better and better day over day and year over year, to the point that, a couple of years into his career, he's now off to Europe to play with a Champions League side in Club Bruges. I just always think back to that first conversation I had with Tejan, and I think of that kid who's just got a chip on his shoulder and wants to keep proving people wrong. And he has continuously done that. And then in terms of an on-field moment, I think I have to go back to the goal he scored in the playoffs last year against the Philadelphia Union. After Adam Buksa had given the Revs a 1-0 lead on the road at Subaru Park to put them ahead of the Supporters Shield champions at the time. That was such a huge goal. And then for Tejan to come down with 10 or so minutes later and score an incredible goal to put the Revs up 2-0. He pulls the backflip out of nowhere in that moment. No one at that point knew that he could do the backflip as a goal celebration. So you had just an incredible goal to put the Revs in a great position in a playoff game. Tejan does the backflip. We'll have that moment, I'm sure, playing on Revolution highlight reels for a long time.
Yeah, I still remember watching that highlight. And I think I definitely had that on replay a lot this year. And he had that great goal to give the Revs the win when we won or hit the 73 points, the most points, and obviously the goal in the playoffs. But it'll definitely be missed.
Yeah, it would have been if the Revs had gone on to win that playoff game against New York City FC. I don't think there's any question that the goal he scored in the 118th minute to tie that game up would have been the most memorable moment of his time with the Revolution. And it's still pretty close, even though the penalty shootout happened a few minutes after that. And unfortunately, the Revs weren't able to get the job done. That moment, I was standing on the sidelines when Tejan scored that goal. And just to see it unfold the way that I did with the Ima's cross coming from the far side and Tejan lining it up, and you could see it all unfolding right in front of you, and the way that crowd reacted. I have never felt Gillette Stadium as electric as it was in that moment when Tejan scored that goal. And I know it was a short-lived euphoria, but it was euphoria for a few minutes when Tejan scored that goal against New York City.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been much, much better and happier for the fans if that was the winning goal instead of just the tying goal, or if we'd won in penalty shootouts. Moving forward to this upcoming season, we've already seen the Revs, especially this week, been super busy with a lot of the schedule coming out and with CCL. So I guess my first question is, if you could quickly explain to people what CCL is, and then your thoughts about that with the Revs playing.
Yeah, so the Revs have qualified for the Concacaf Champions League for the first time since 2008. So for soccer fans who know what the Champions League is in Europe, it's essentially the same concept. So Concacaf Champions League essentially takes the best teams from all of the leagues within the CONCACAF region and pits them against each other. So you've got all the best teams from Canada, the United States, Mexico. There's only one Caribbean team in the competition this year. It's a team from Haiti who the Revs are playing. There's clubs from Costa Rica, Honduras, Guatemala. All of the best clubs in the region all come together to play a competition against each other to determine who's the best club in the entire region. And as Supporters Shield champions, the Revs will be part of that competition in 2022. They'll get started in the round of 16 in mid-February when they will play Cavalli AS, the Haitian side. So from there, it's just basically a knockout competition. You'll have a round of 16 down to the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. And by early May, we'll be crowning a champion in the CONCACAF Champions League to see who will move on to play in the Club World Cup against some of the best teams in the world.
Yeah, first the Revs would have to win their round of 16 to advance, and it's a little different. It's similar to what playoffs used to be with the two aggregate games.
Yeah, so it will be a home and away leg for the Revs. They'll start with the away leg. That the schedule was confirmed yesterday that the dates will be February 15th for the away leg, February 22nd for the home leg at Gillette Stadium. The location for the February 15th game has yet to be determined. Don't know exactly where that game is going to be yet, but we do know that will be the Revs road game, and it will be on February 15th. And yes, it will be. I know that's one of the more confusing aspects for people who aren't necessarily diehard soccer fans, is understanding the two-legged format with aggregate goals. So essentially you will take the two scores from the home and away leg, combine them, and whichever team has the most goals over the course of both legs will move on to the quarterfinals.
And there's tiebreakers if it ends up tied, but we'll explain that if we ever get to that point. Moving forward with the regular season, we had the regular season come out, playing some more Western Conference teams than we did in the past. I guess first off, your initial thoughts on the schedule.
Yeah, I am happy that they're expanding a little bit more to see some more Western Conference teams. I understand as the league gets bigger and bigger, with now 28 teams in the league and 14 teams in each conference, the fact is you're probably not going to see it ever go back to the way it used to be. We were almost playing an equal number of games against Eastern Conference teams and Western Conference teams. It's not really going to be feasible to ever get back to that just because of the way the league is expanding. But throughout 2020 and 2021, you almost saw no interconference play at all. It was basically the East versus the East and the West versus the West. So I'm glad that in 2022, as you mentioned, there will be some more Western Conference games. The Revs will play 8 games against Western Conference teams, 4 on the road, 4 at home, and then they'll play 26 games against Eastern Conference teams. So I'm looking forward to a little bit more balance to the schedule in that sense. And then there's some exciting games on the docket with there's going to play the Charlotte FC a couple of times early in the season, a new expansion side. They're going to finally get to play the LA Galaxy at home for the first time in, I think, 4 years. So some games on the schedule that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, and it all starts February 26th in Portland. The Revs were definitely hoping to, when they come home the following week, be raising the MLS Cup champion trophy, but unfortunately that's not the case. So their home opener is March 6th.
Is it March 6th or is it March 5th? Now I'm confused. Is it March 6th? I thought it was March 5th.
I may have said that wrong. It may be March 5th.
Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, I hope you're right and I'm wrong. We'll host FC Dallas at Gillette Stadium to start the season at home.
All right. With one of the games you mentioned was the LA Galaxy coming back. We'll actually have a few Revs players be playing their former club. Recently, they signed Sebastian Lletget, and you actually had the chance to sit down with him. How will bringing Lletget and having him been coached with Bruce Arena a few years ago help with his connection to the Revs?
Yeah, we've seen this a ton with Bruce Arena. It feels like players kind of find their way back to him all the time. And I think it's because Bruce Arena has this way about him. Sebastian Lletget called it a secret sauce, that he just has this way of getting the best out of every player. And he certainly got the best out of Sebastian Lletget in LA. When you look at Sebastian Lletget's 7 seasons with the Galaxy, his 2 best years statistically were 2015 and 2016, his first 2 years in LA when Bruce Arena was his head coach. He had a career high 7 goals in 2015. He had a career high 8 assists in 2016. And they never quite found that form again after Bruce Arena left. And I talked with Sebastian about that. And he said that what makes Bruce Arena special as a coach is that he simplifies things for his players. He gives his players clearly defined roles and doesn't complicate things. And Sebastian Lletget said that's what he needs as a player. He needs to be told exactly what's expected of him. Here's your role. Go out and do that. And that's going to help the team win games. So he feels like Bruce Arena is the type of coach who can get the best out of him. And that's why both Lletget and the Revs are pretty excited about this reunion in New England to see exactly what they can get out of him.
You mentioned Lletget and Arena. We also know that few Revs players played with the Galaxy, but recently Lletget and Matt Turner played on the Gold Cup, and I've heard their connection is really tight.
Yeah, Sebastian Lletget actually told me that he's never had as close a connection off the field with any teammate as he has with Matt Turner. He said that he's had really close friends on teams, really great connections with teammates, really tight in the locker room. But in terms of actually connecting and hanging out off the field, he said he's never been as close with any of his teammates as he is with Matt Turner. So he's really excited to join him at the club level and to kind of take that connection that they made with the U.S. national team. to the club level. And Leggett also said that that's going to be huge for him getting settled into New England, because he played with the LA Galaxy for the past 7 seasons. This is his first move to a new club in a long time. He said he's never been to Boston before. He's never been to Foxborough. He said for whatever reason, every time the Galaxy played the Revs, he always missed that game. So he's never been to Foxborough. He's moving to a completely new part of the country. So he said, knowing some familiar faces from the Galaxy in guys like Bruce and AJ De La Garza and Yuma Boateng is going to be important. But having a really close friend like Matt Turner on the team to help him get settled into the area and kind of make him feel like he's at home off the field, he said that's going to be really important too.
Definitely creating those connections early on is what is really important. And we'll see how much that connection really builds when the next season starts. We'll see as early as preseason training very soon. One big thing, like as many Revs fans and MLS fans know, the Revs have a new logo, as you are showing off. And this was a big, you'd say, step for the Revolution. And I want to hear your thoughts on the change of the logo.
Yeah, the culmination of a years-long process spearheaded by our VP of Marketing, Cathal Conlon, to just kind of bring the Revs into, the new era of Major League Soccer. And, this is a tough one because I was a New England Revolution fan starting in 1996. I was, attached to the old logo for 26 seasons, like I'm sure many Revolution supporters were. So there's a certain nostalgia and a certain attachment to that original logo. And that's completely understandable. I'm in that boat as well. But I'm also of the mind that it was time for a change. It was time to update and kind of move into, like we said, the new era of Major League Soccer. So I love what the club did over the course of the past couple of years in terms of connecting with the fans, connecting with all different segments of fans around New England to get their input, determine what was important in a team name, what was important in a logo, what was important in a brand, all of that type of stuff, to be able to pull all of that information together and create what they felt was the right identity for this club. So this is the identity that we've got now. It's going to take a little bit of time getting used to, obviously, because you'll see the Revs schedule and you see this logo next to the club name, and it's kind of like, what's that? Oh, that's the new logo. But I love it. I think the response to it has been largely positive from a fan perspective. So excited to see this kind of continue to find its place over the course of the next year or so. You're going to start seeing a lot more gear. We're going to see it on the jerseys and all that. So it's a new era for the Revolution. I wish we'd been able to send the original logo off with the championship in 2021. At least we got it as supporter shield before we put it to bed. But it was time. It was time for a change. And I think it kind of signals this exciting new era for the Revs.
Definitely. And we look forward to the upcoming season. You'd say it's a next chapter of the Revs story. They've gone 26 years with one part. This is the next part. And hopefully the next time maybe we sit down, we'll have a championship and a little star above the crest. But until then, we look forward to the upcoming season. And we wanted to thank you for taking your time and joining us and giving us a little insight on the Revs.
Hey, no problem. Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate you having me.
You're welcome. That'll do it for our interview with special guest Jeff Lemieux from the New England Revolution. Thank you for watching.